So it looks like the Afrikaners will arrive from South Africa next week. Now, there are already Afrikaners who live in the United States of America. And everyone wants to know, what are they running from? They're running from black folks. The white flight is a thing here in the United States of America where when there are too many black folks around, the white folks up and move, right? Well, this is an international phenomenon. I'm not quite sure why they do that, though, because they come to where other people are and then they want to shuffle. White people do this thing, and this is a cultural thing. This is a real tradition, okay, obviously, because they like to move people around.
Elon Musk cried at Daddy Trump about the racism that his fellow South Africans are receiving, and Donald Trump is helping them out. So now, what are you going to do about the racism in America, Donald Trump?
The group of white South African refugees are not refugees. Refugee is defined as someone forced to leave their country to seek refuge, safety in another country due to conflict, persecution, or human rights violations. The Trump administration has granted refugee status to 54 white South Africans, Afrikaners specifically, who are the descendants of mainly Dutch colonizers, settlers, squatters in South Africa. This group of white South Africans have claimed to have faced racial persecution and theft of farmland, although no proof of such happenings has been brought forward. The truth is that this group of white South Africans are the same ones who are angry about the end of apartheid, Jim Crow in South Africa. These are the neo-Nazis, the Klan, the white supremacists of South Africa. They feel that the end of apartheid and the push for equality is injustice to them, much like the far-right groups here in America who mourn the loss of their rights to own slaves with the end of the Civil War and the end of Jim Crow here in America. The Trump administration granting refugee status to white extremists after suspending the refugee admissions programs to all non-white refugees, all non-white asylum-seeking groups, while simultaneously deporting minorities without hearings, feels very much like a move that would have happened in 1930s Germany. Government efforts towards equality is not injustice. Unfortunately, we are under a white nationalist administration who does view any and all progress towards equity as oppression against white people. Now tell us again how it's not about race.
So I have some breaking news that I think you need to brace yourself for. Now, this has been secretly brewing. I've heard about it, but I've kind of just been sort of like ignoring it. But now it's official because the New York Times has released it in an article. When I say brace yourself, I mean brace yourself for this one. Get ready. So as early as next week, the administration will be welcoming South African Afrikaners into the United States. So this is basically a rapid relocation, per the New York Times, of South Afrikaners, which President Trump says are being racially persecuted in South Africa. So if you've been following this series for a while, you know as much joy and hope as I've had for actual refugees to be resettled, I've always been cautious of being too happy, which I was in my very recent video, because I knew this was coming down the pike, but I didn't want to believe it, but it's true. The reason why I was so happy in my previous video is because the court said that they were going to hold the administration in contempt if they did not follow the order. And that's technically supposed to start as of May 12th, the unraveling or the restart of the refugee resettlement program. But now, with all of this happening, who knows what's going to happen?
I know every time you see my face, you're like, girl, what you got now? Sit down. I've got more news and information that you can use. The Trump administration is planning to soon receive the first group of white South African refugees it says deserve a safe haven in the U.S. because of alleged racial discrimination in post-apartheid South Africa. Government documents obtained by CBS News are actually showing the initial arrival of the South African refugees could happen as early as next week, according to the documents, which describe the effort as a, quote, stated priority for the Trump administration. Officials have planned a Monday press event at Dulles International Airport in Virginia to welcome the group, the documents show, although sources familiar with the effort told CBS News the timing of the plan could actually change. So in February, some of you all must remember, President Trump issued an executive order directing officials to use the U.S. refugee program to resettle Afrikaners, an ethnic group in South Africa made up of descendants of European colonists, mostly from the Netherlands. The president claimed that Afrikaners faced government-sponsored race-based discrimination, citing a law that U.S. conservatives like South African-born Elon Musk have said allow racially motivated seizures of land owned by white South Africans. South Africa's government has strongly denied any land confiscations or racially motivated discrimination. The hastily arranged initiative to welcome Afrikaners stands in stark contrast to the Trump administration's move to ban most other refugees from entering the U.S. One of Trump's first actions after returning to the White House was suspending the American Refugee Admissions Program, stranding thousands of approved refugees who had been identified as vulnerable individuals fleeing violence and persecution in Africa, Asia, and other parts of the world.
Bro, what you mean they about to have 8,000 white South Africaner refugees coming over here? Y'all serious? Bro, you are already the majority. Like, how much help do you need? You like that person that claims to be the star player, but literally everybody else does all the work. If you go out on a weekend, like, the place is already filled with a bunch of dudes who want to look like Morgan Wallen and a bunch of girls who probably dyed their hair blonde because they aren't a natural one. And you're telling me there's going to be more of that? Jesus Christ, man. Somebody actually explained to me how they're the beauty standard when they're literally fucking everywhere. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but rarities are usually looked at as, you know, something that's cool. Not something that you see every 5 fucking seconds. No, seriously, what in the dystopian color of friendship is this bull?
White people in South Africa, Afrikaners, are claiming racial discrimination, and because of this, the Trump administration is granting them refugee status here in the United States. Now, never mind that claims of discrimination doesn't meet the threshold for refugee status under domestic and international refugee law. And never mind that Trump suspended the refugee resettlement program after he got elected into office, because these white Afrikaners get an exception. Don't worry about the millions of refugees in Sudan and Libya and the Congo who are facing historic levels of hunger and violence in their countries. Let's focus on these white people who feel like they're being discriminated against. And let's fast track their process, something that usually takes 1 to 2 years. Let's not make these white South Afrikaners wait more than 3 months. This is just one of the many reasons why that woke family member at the dinner table thinks that you're a racist bigot for supporting Trump.